back to the Chris Christie bridge situation. Remember Chris Christie's statements about when he found out the first time about these controversial, politically motivated lane closures, which led to delayed emergency response vehicles and backed up traffic in Fort Lee for a really long time in New Jersey? This is what Chris Christie had to say.
Factually, it did not get to me. And the first I ever heard about the issue was when it was reported in the press, which I think was in the aftermath of the leaking of Mr. Foy's email. I think that was the first I heard of it, but it was certainly well after the whole thing was over.
That's very clear. We played that video last week when we started to get a sense that there may be information released in the future that suggests Chris Christie did know about the lane closures before the entire thing was over. And Chris Christie was very clear. Well, it seems we now have even more suggestion that Chris Christie did know all about this. The Newark Star-Ledger is reporting the New Jersey Legislative Committee investigating the Bridgegate scandal will probe records of helicopter rides that Governor Chris Christie took to see if he did fly near Fort Lee while the lanes leading to the George Washington Bridge were closed, according to what sources told the Post. Sources in the governor's office, listen to this, said that Christie took a ferry to Ground Zero from Jersey City on the 9/11 anniversary and then flew back to Trenton, but that the controversial David Wildstein was not on board. If this is true, Chris Christie is going to have to explain why he was flown over the bridge on the third day of the politically motivated traffic jam that was engineered by officials in his office to punish Fort Lee's Democratic mayor. Was it because he wanted to look at how Bridgegate was panning out? David Wildstein says that he knows of evidence that Chris Christie was lying when he said he didn't know anything about it. Is this possibly the smoking gun that he hinted at during January? It very well may be. And again, every week we seem to be slightly further from believing the Chris Christie story that he knew nothing about it, and slightly closer, Lewis, to having evidence that he knew all about it.
Looking back on stories where something like this happens, where a politician is suspected of doing something like this, and then there's a huge investigation, everyone's looking into it, every week there's a little more information, none of them have ever ended well for that person who's been under suspicion.
Right. If I think ahead 3 months, does the scenario where it was all a big misunderstanding and Chris Christie is completely vindicated of having known anything at all, does that feel like a likely thing? It really doesn't feel very likely.
Yeah, that never happens. I don't think there's any way he will be exonerated here. I think this just spells disaster.
Republicans and Democrats should be completely united about this, by the way. I know that because of the system we have in which you need your political base to get elected in the first place through the money you raise, and then you need to have allegiances in order to stay in office and to go to greater office. I understand all that, and I get that there's a very partisan element to this. But why would either side want a liar who is willing to shut down transportation leading to delayed emergency response vehicles? Why would anyone want someone like that in office, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat? If you're a Democrat, you want him out, and you presumably want to replace him with a Democrat. If you're a Republican, wouldn't you also want him out and replace him with an honest Republican if you can find one?
That would be ideal. You can't have someone who just does stupid things based off of irrational emotions. But then again, you could look at pretty much our entire political system and see that.